where the rubber always meets the road, I think. Actually, I'm not even sure what that means.
Heartland Newsfeed Radio Network, live at heartlandnewsfeed.com.
With me on Monday as he makes his way north from New Orleans. He attended the National Cattlemen's Beef Association annual meeting and trade show. Sure enjoyed his reports from that event and read some great reports and stories online at farmweeknow.com. But that meeting, a good timing, right, for him to head south with record-breaking temperatures this past week in Illinois. We'll have an updated forecast for you later in today's program. We'll also take a look at the markets, AgriVisor, along with a look back at the past week in the markets and a look ahead into February as we closed out the month this past week as well. Tour the 49th annual AgMech Farm Show, February 9th and 10th at Western Illinois University in Macomb. For details, visit their Facebook page. It's facebook.com/WIU Farm Expo. WIU Farm Expo. Always a terrific opportunity in Western Illinois. Also promoting the Farm Week Spring Edition, Planting Special Edition coming out. It will be February 18th and get an early outlook on the year's planting season. If you'd like to place an ad in that publication, contact the folks at Farm Week at 800-676-2353. This is RFD Illinois.
Farm Week and FarmWeekNow.com journalist Dina Stroish connects rural routes for you. From the Farm Bill to crop insurance to GMO labeling, her expertise is apparent in the stories she reports. Here's a bit about her rural roots.
I get to meet interesting people and share their stories, and I get paid to do it. I cover ag policy and really enjoy keeping the farming community updated on these important issues.
Be it routes or roots, RFD Radio, FarmWeekNow.com, and Farm Week keep you connected.
Farm, family, food. Those three words best describe Illinois Farm Bureau. Farm. For 100 years, Farm Bureau in Illinois has represented and served the men and women who make Illinois one of the top food-producing states. Family. At the heart of rural Illinois are traditional farm families who work together through Illinois Farm Bureau. And food. Farm Bureau families are proud to grow the healthy food they provide their families and yours. Farm, family, food. The heart of Farm Bureau in Illinois.
Welcome back to RFD Illinois on a Saturday. Matt Kay is our Washington correspondent. And Matt, let's start with China. Deal or no deal?
Well, it's looking better. The Chinese vice premier was here in Washington to engage in what could be consequential talks for a breakthrough with China to end this tariff war. It appears now that President Trump and China's President Xi Jinping will meet later this month. We don't know exactly where. It could be somewhere in Vietnam or close to Vietnam because President Trump has a meeting with North Korea's Kim Jong-un at the end of this month in Vietnam. That's a positive development, but that gives lower-level trade negotiators only about a month, less than 30 days now, to get an agreement that provides enough of a framework that the two leaders can ratify when they get together later this month. There's a lot of work to be done. There are still big questions hanging out there about the structural changes that the U.S. is demanding. It's not just about the big deficit, and the Chinese have agreed to buy more soybeans. But the real question is, will China make changes in its subsidies, and also this question of forced technology transfer, that if you want to do business in China, that you have to hand over your trade secrets. They are willing to make some reforms on protecting intellectual property, but that might not go far enough. So, Rita, the bottom line question is, will President Trump go for a weak deal and declare victory, or will he insist on a tougher deal? March 1st is the deadline that the president has laid out for an increase in tariffs against some $200 billion in Chinese goods, raising that from 10% to 25%, as you recall. That was delayed last year and now is set to take effect if there's no deal. But President Trump seems to be indicating that these talks could be extended a little bit if they do not reach that big deal by the beginning of March. It seems, though, that progress was made this week with the vice premier, and that we could see something very positive for both agriculture and U.S. business in March.
Well, we sure hope so. A lot of industries depend upon it. Let's go to Brexit. Now we have a new term in our head, a soft Brexit. What's that?
A soft Brexit essentially is where you keep open borders on the Irish island, and that would continue smooth trade and travel between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland in the south. But the problem, Rita, is this. If there is this soft Brexit, which many the Parliament are looking for, and the Prime Minister has made part of her deal with the UK, with Brussels, if you have the UK still in this customs union with the European Union, it really does not extricate the UK completely from the EU, and that makes it hard for Britain to do unilateral trade deals with the U.S. or anyone else. We talked this week with American Farm Bureau's Dave Salmonson, and he says if they're going to stay in this regulatory regime and still be, half in and half out of the UK, and it's because of this Irish border issue that it just makes it hard to get a substantive agreement between the U.S. and the UK. Now, that's not to say that planning isn't being done. It is being done for the eventuality that there could be substantive talks between the U.S. and the UK. The U.S. has put together a goals list. It's actually had hearings on this. The Director of National Intelligence of the U.S. DNI, Daniel Coates, a former Indiana senator, is warning that if there is a disorderly exit of Britain, if there's actually a hard exit with a hard border between Northern Ireland and the Republic, that could cause severe economic disruptions and substantially weaken the UK and the Europe. So this is kind of a damned if you do and damned if you don't. We don't know where it's going to end up, but we certainly know that this whole issue is turning to British politics on its head, and no one knows how it's going to turn out.
Well, Matt, we certainly continue to appreciate your coverage of these items for us. Matt Kay, Washington correspondent, will be back with more RFD, Illinois.
Remember that movie National Lampoon's Vacation? Well, Clark Griswold has nothing on me. Give me the open road and my Illinois Farm Bureau membership card, and I am the ultimate road warrior. Like last summer, I drove the family to Williamsburg at a fraction of the cost. Once I hit the road, I don't stop for much, so I used my membership to rent a minivan from Enterprise. The kids got more bouncing room, and I saved 5%. Then I used my Illinois Farm Bureau membership to save 20% on choice hotels from here all the way to the East Coast. On the way back, we stopped and saved at our favorite theme park, too. I was hoping it would wear out the kids and they'd sleep. Good thing I got that minivan for bouncing, though. No matter how unique my travel needs are, I know that my membership can help. Illinois Farm Bureau. It's membership for my lifestyle.
Isn't it time you learned how Illinois Farm Bureau member-only discounts fit into your lifestyle? Call your county farm bureau or visit ilfb.org for details.
Hello, America, and welcome to the Ag Resource Livestock Market Watch. I'm Nathan Losey with Ag Resource Company in Chicago. Ag Resource offers daily market updates via email, which feature all the latest news along with short and long-term price forecasts. Our reports feature in-depth coverage of livestock, grain, and oilseed markets, and also comprehensive farm marketing advice, so you can spend less time worrying about the markets and more time focused on your farm or ranch. Go to agresource.com to sign up for a free one-week trial, or use promo code LIVESTOCK at checkout to get 50% off your first month subscription. It was another lower week of trade for CME hog futures, with the market under pressure from fund liquidation and softer trends in the cash market. The pork cutout has also trended weaker since mid-January, which has weighed on packer margins and the cash hog market. This, along with technical selling, had the hog trade under pressure all week, pulling April hogs down to a 7-month low. The CME had built in large premiums on hopes of Chinese exports in early 2019, but with trade negotiations still ongoing, the earliest chance for significant exports would be sometime in the second quarter. All the Chinese China premiums have now been wiped out with April and June hogs back near their summer lows, and after a $14 drop from contract highs, April hogs are very deeply oversold and likely close to a bottom. However, going forward, rallies will need to be led by the cash market. Cattle futures were sharply mixed through the week. Slow and quiet trade unfolded through the first half, with April cattle grinding higher. A sharply mixed day unfolded through Thursday, with the market first rallying to new contract highs and then falling sharply on technical selling. The cash cattle market has stalled in the last half of January, and the CME is focused on timing of a seasonal high. Carcass weights are down from a year ago, and the weather losses have feeders still looking for higher prices, and at the same time is also curbing demand for feeder cattle. The question for the market going forward now is when increased numbers start to go to market and how lower weights will offset marketing rates that are expected to start rising later in the first quarter. Until next time, I'm Nathan Losey, and thanks for listening this week to the AgResource Livestock Market Watch.
This is Let's Talk Horses on the RFD Radio Network. I'm Jason Vance. Joining me is Dr. Rob Foss, a veterinarian at Equine Medical Services. EMS has one of the nation's leading embryo transfer programs, having transferred thousands of embryos over the past 20 years. Rob, what are the main reasons for embryo transfer?
Well, there are three main reasons to do embryo transfer in mares. The first is for mares that can't carry their own foal to term. They can produce embryos, but whether it's reproductive or musculoskeletal problems, they can't carry the foal to term, so we transfer the embryo into a recipient. The second reason, is the most common, is for mares to produce multiple foals in a given year, usually from very valuable mares. And the third reason is for mares that are competing, whether showing or racing. That way they can raise foals while they're still performing their duties.
Now, how exactly does the process of embryo transfer happen?
Well, the donor mare is bred normally, just as you would for breeding her to carry. And then 7 days after she ovulates, 7 days after conception, the uterus is flushed to recover the embryo. Embryos enter the uterus about day 5.5 or 6, and so are available to us after that time. And then once the embryo is recovered, it's transferred into a recipient mare who is synchronized in her reproductive cycle with the donor mare.
It seems like that would be a pretty delicate operation.
Well, yes, somewhat. The embryos are, of course, small and delicate to a degree. They can withstand a little more movement than you would think. Right in this time period, they're between day 6.5 to 8 are really at a prime development for us to be able to move them around.
What is the pregnancy success rate of embryo transfer?
Well, there are a couple different ways of measuring the success, but once you recover an embryo, you should result in a pregnancy about 80% of the time. Of course, recovering the embryo is different depending upon the reproductive issues of your mare and even the stallion that you're breeding to. So a very fertile mare will produce embryos 70 to 80% of the time, and of course infertile mares will go all the way down to 0 sometimes.
So recovery is one aspect of that, but actual transfer success, is the success rate once you've reached that stage different than the recovery stage?
Well, yes, the success rate once you recover an embryo is usually around 80% to 85% pregnancy rate once you recover the embryo. It will vary somewhat with the quality of the embryo recovered. If it came from a mare with an infected flush or is from an old mare with an embryo that's not very vital. But generally it's around 80-85%.
Now, you offer some different options for embryo transfer here at EMS. Can you tell us a little bit about them?
Well, the two main options are either to bring your mare for us to breed and flush the embryo and transfer into a recipient. About half of our embryo pregnancies are from these mares. The other half come from embryos that are shipped to us from across the country, either via airline or some even by FedEx.
How many embryos can be recovered from a typical mare?
Well, if you have a fertile mare, one that tends to ovulate, multiple follicles, quite a few. We've recovered up to 3 embryos in a single flush from mares, and up to 10 or 12 in a year. There have been some mares that produce 20 in a year, but that's very unusual.
I'm sure that it varies a lot from mare to mare, and a lot of it probably has to do with age as well.
Very much so. Embryo transfer is a way of getting around some fertility issues, but it is not a treatment for old age. And the fertility decline in the vitality of the eggs and the quality of the uterus, we really don't have treatments for.
Now, there's a lot of preparation that goes into embryo transfer, isn't there?
Well, there is. Just as in breeding any mare, there's a lot of preparation in getting the mare ready to breed having all the paperwork, the die-in issues taken care of. But also on the other end, the recipient end, is quite a bit of work getting recipient mares cycling and synchronized with the donor mare, and also in a recipient herd. Usually they need to come in about 6 months ahead of time to get them situated and healthy and ready to go.
How important is it to choose a mare of similar size or type as far as being a recipient mare?
Size is somewhat important because it will affect somewhat the size of the foal, although genetics takes over at some point too. But if you put a very large mare's embryo in a very small mare, it will end up being probably smaller than normal at maturity.
Well, Rob, thank you so much for giving us a glimpse of your embryo transfer program.
Well, it's been my pleasure. Thank you.
That's Dr. Rob Foss, a veterinarian at Equine Medical Services. He's been our guest on Let's Talk Horses. Thanks for listening, and tune in next time for another edition of Let's Talk Horses.
For University of Illinois Extension, I'm Todd Gleason. The weather is next.
From the State Climatologist Office for the Illinois State Water Survey at the University of Illinois Prairie Research Institute, this is Brian Kirshner. A welcomed warm-up is currently underway in Illinois as the state recovers from a 2-day record-breaking cold air outbreak. The most notable temperatures occurred on the morning of January 31st, when an all-time station record low of negative 33 degrees was recorded in Moline, and an all-time station record low of negative 31 in Rockford. The coldest recording in the state of negative 38 degrees by the Cooperative Weather Observer at Mount Carroll in Carroll County is currently under review by the State Extremes Committee. If verified, this would become the all-time record cold temperature for Illinois. The previous record was negative 36 degrees recorded in Congerville on January 5, 1999. In addition to the sub-zero temperatures, wind chills played a major factor in this event. The coldest wind chill of negative 55 degrees was calculated in Aurora on the morning of January 30th. Even locations in extreme southern Illinois recorded sub-zero wind chills during this event. This weekend, a southerly flow will bring significantly warmer temperatures to the state, along with breezy conditions and chances for rain showers. According to the National Weather Service, high temperatures through Monday will be in the 40s and 50s, with readings of 60 or higher possible as you move south of I-70. The warmer weather may not be around to stay, as the Climate Prediction Center's 8 to 14-day outlook favors below average temperatures statewide. This is Brian Kirshner from the State Climatologist Office.
And I'm Todd Gleason. For ULI Extension, you have a great and a very safe week.
Time to look at your closing numbers at the end of a trading week with AgriVisor's Dale Durkoltz. How do we close, Dale?
Well, actually, it's kind of an interesting day. We had corn and beans, both beans in particular. I have nice gains out of the chute here to wrap up the week. The beans settled off at the end of the day. Strength in both of those really seemed to come from the talk we had late yesterday. China was going to buy maybe another 5 million ton of beans for reserves. There was also some comments about China maybe also looking at buying some corn and some wheat from the U.S. for the reserves to fulfill this promise to buy commodities out of the U.S., to kind of salve some of the nerves over this trade friction we have going. It did seem like at the end of the week they made good progress. I know Trade Chairman Lighthizer and Treasury Secretary Mnuchin are headed back to China here in another week or so to continue on some discussions there, and it said that the Chinese even extended an invitation to President Trump to stop and meet with President Xi after he meets with the North Korean leader here towards the end of the month of February. So we'll have to see how that pans out. But more optimism per se at the end of the day. Markets settled off, beans in particular, a little bit at the end of the day, I think, given the fact that it is still not a lot of certainty yet, and we still have a big bean crop to work through here. And, South America, we're going to have good production depending on what final crop size ends up being. But, I think it really had more to do with it's the weekend, and you had some people that had some profits for the week and just walked back and stayed and went home. wheat actually ended up closing out pretty good, and I think that's something to look at going forward.
For Illinois agricultural leaders, or those who want to be one, this is the week's Best of Leader page from the Illinois Farm Bureau. I'm Rachel Torbert.
In for Rachel this week, I'm Rita Frazier. China vows to buy more U.S. goods, sees progress in trade talks. China promised to substantially expand purchases of U.S. goods after the latest rounds of trade talks, and both sides plan further discussion to reach a breakthrough. China agreed to increase imports of U.S. agriculture, energy, industrial products, and services. USDA awards Agricultural Trade Promotion Program funding. U.S. Secretary of Agriculture Sonny Perdue announced Thursday the USDA has awarded $200 million to 57 organizations through the Agricultural Trade Promotion Program, ATP, to help farmers and ranchers identify and access new export markets. The ATP is one program USDA created to mitigate the effects of unjustified trade retaliation against U.S. farmers and exporters. And the Illinois Farm Bureau's Board of Directors recently approved the organization's national legislative priorities for the year. Trade tops the list of issues IFB will be working on in Washington, D.C. And a much-anticipated warmer weekend in the Midwest after record-shattering Arctic blast keeps the Midwest at a deep freeze this past week.
That's the Best of Leader page for this week. I'm Rachel Torbert. You can receive an electronic version of Leader Page Monday through Friday. Just go to farmweeknow.com, click the banner, and sign up to receive the farmweeknow.com daily update, which contains the daily edition of the Illinois Farm Bureau Leader Page.
That's all the time we have for this edition of RFD Illinois. Thanks for spending some time with us this weekend. It's time to salute an Illinois community. Today, we choose Bushnell in McDonough County. Population 3,117. Good morning. This salute brought to you by Country. Your farm is your family's legacy and a part of your hometown heritage. While you work sun up to sundown to get the job done, they're here to protect you and the things that you love every step of the way. Country Financial. Learn more by visiting them, countrycrop.com. On behalf of the entire RFD radio team, I'm Rita Frazier. Have a great weekend. Thank you for joining us here on the RFD Radio Network.
Hey, a great way to reach farmers, reach those in agriculture, is through local radio. In fact, Rita, from the National Association of Farm Broadcasting, they have research that shows that farmers listen, 87% say they listen 3+ days a week, 74